So this...
Go ahead.
So this time I'm actually introducing the topic. I'm carrying my weight. We're actually going to revisit or finish up... Not finish, but...
We're not quite done.
We're going back to the Celestine Prophecy. We're doing 6 and 7 this time.
Hopefully, because I don't want it to be too long, because Kyra's gonna edit this. She forgot.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think it'd be that. Never mind.
I was gonna say she hates listening to her voice, so that's gonna be the biggest hurdle. But overall, we're not doing as many like amateur things as we were before, so that part's gonna be easy.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
But anyway,
I was gonna say, do you want me to read my little blurb before we hop into the actual text, or how do you want to play this?
So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start off giving like a recount, and then you insert where needed.
Well, see, that's why I think I'm not gonna read the whole, like, if I read this chunk, that's all I would want to read, and then you would actually explain.
Okay, works for me. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Kaylyn's gonna start.
Yeah, no. So the sixth insight depicts facing our particular way of controlling others. What things that you do to gain energy and attention from others, and how can you move past doing those things? You can't stay connected to the source of energy that was introduced back in the fifth sight without dealing with this particular part of yourself.
Yep, it's actually called what is it called? Right here. Control drama. That's what it is.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting as I was reading it, because really it kind of just brings your whole life into a circle, and lets you see how every aspect of your life is implemented into progressing you forward. Like, a lot of people, they think going forward you don't look back at the past, and a lot of times you have to remember the past in order to move forward, because then you end up making the same mistakes.
I was just about to say, how else do you learn from your mistakes?
So we should insert a Lion King meme in there.
Yeah, that's on you. Yeah, man. Kyra's gonna put in some Lion King memes.
No, I'm not. But anyway, I'm not advanced enough for that yet.
Not yet. Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll get there.
So what I found interesting about it was that he was learning the main character was learning what his control drama was, which is being aloof. And it was interesting with it being drawn out, because there's 3 different types of control drama, and that includes the interrogator, intimidator, and aloofness. And apparently an interrogator creates...
Oh, wait, you forgot one.
What there?
The poor me.
Poor me.
Yes.
There's a reason I forget that one. Poor me, which is... Well, I guess I should explain what each one is. Mm-hmm. So, the intimidator uses... is exactly what it is. Yeah. Aggression to control people's energy and to get them to give them attention. So think of like bullies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Or the example actually in this story was he's talking to a priest and he's trying to get answers, but because the priest is not getting what he wants, he forgot himself and switched back into his control drama, which was being an intimidator. And so he said, I can arrange for you to go to one of our prisons. Do you want that? Is that what you want? And when people act like that all the time. All the time. Like, oh, you're not gonna... And the police officers, everything. Like, oh, parents. You're not gonna give me... You're not gonna pull over. You're not gonna put your hands up, or you're not gonna do this. Do you want me to...
Are you resisting arrest?
You want me to... Right. You want me to pull my gun out on you? You want to fight? You want to... So people do that. And that's their control drama of being an intimidator. Now, what they did say is that a lot of times people may have multiple control dramas, but there's one that's more prevalent than the others.
Yeah.
And and then let me just explain the rest, and then I'll tell you what mine is.
I was gonna say that this one was the one that made me start actually reflecting on myself the most.
This made me think so much about myself, and I know where my mom is now.
Same.
And it was just one thing I don't know is my dad and my grandfather, but I think they were more unconsciously progressive than I thought, I guess.
So you're saying they already understood their dramas per se?
I think they understood it without understanding that was a control drama.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Because when I think more about them, I can't figure out what theirs was, and it's because they realistically weren't you, but it may have been based on things that they went through in the past, and they actually corrected it instead of
outgrew it. Yeah,
instead
that's
of like
nice, yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Really
anyway,
yeah.
So then there's interrogator.
Mm-hmm.
So this is technically created or can be created by having parents who are aloof. So what the interrogator does is that they basically nitpick to get attention from you. So they find out all the stuff that you do and then find something wrong with it to elicit a reaction from you.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people will see it in their parents, but the example used in the book was the main character's dad. His dad he was teaching him all these different things, and so then he would try to go to him and be like, hey dad, I did this. And so he said his dad would acknowledge the stuff that he did, but then find just one thing wrong with it. So, oh yeah, you read that book, but it looks like you skipped pages 1 and 2. So you did that wrong. You got to do it over again. So it created a type of perfectionism within it.
Mm-hmm.
And that created him being aloof. So while aloof can create an interrogator because they're looking for attention, so they have to ask questions and essentially interrogate that person to get a reaction, to get attention. An interrogator themselves can create someone who's aloof, and that's just a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
And so because he got tired of being nitpicked, because he got tired of wanting to choose one person over the other, because they made it very apparent that his parents had different religious views.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was more free spirit, his mom was more
religious.
Yeah. Conventional?
No, convicted?
Yeah. And so that put him in a position of, did you have to choose? And because he was aware of eyes watching him, if he was being overly religious based on his dad's side or being overly free-spirited based on his mom's side, his mom wanted him to be less free-spirited or whatever, then he decided to be aloof, so he didn't give too much information, so there could not be any type of judgment.
Okay.
And that creates, so whenever he's in situations, he holds back on information to try and figure out how you're going to react before he decides if he's going to, one, release that information or do something about it, or try to quote unquote protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, that reminded me of when I was growing up, I was told that I was too open about my life and stuff like that. Apparently I would volunteer information. I don't think it was that serious, but I was told I was too open. And so then I kind of receded. And then going back into what Kaylyn was talking about earlier about me not liking my voice, my mom, her control drama is being more of like a intimidator.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not necessarily intimidator, nitpicker, interrogator. She would say that we need to be, I have a lot of siblings, but we weren't allowed to discipline each other. I'm the third oldest, but I wasn't allowed to discipline my younger siblings. You don't put your hands on them, is what my mom would say. So we would have to go and tell on them. But sometimes that wouldn't work, and it felt like she wasn't listening. And so we would be like, he's doing this, they're doing that. Then it became, you're complaining too much. And then she said, you whine too much. Your voice. I just can't get tired of hearing your voice. I never had a problem with my voice until she kept saying that. And so then that made me grow into actually hating my voice. And then that made me decide to not talk as much. I've grown out of that now. But the result is now I still don't like to hear my own voice. So that's a lot of the stuff that it can create and stuff like that. So mine is more aloof. My mom's wasn't interrogator. And
Explain
then
aloof.
I'm about to. Okay. So aloof. Well, I thought I just did.
No, I feel like you went into a lot of detail about the interrogator and how it creates aloof, but not necessarily like what the aloof is independently.
Okay, that's fair. So aloof is someone who who tries to control energy coming to them by being mystical. So your attention is more on that person because there's so much suspicion,
like withdrawn, and all that.
There's so much suspicion around them, and you're like, ooh, what is that person like? Why won't they talk? What is it about them that draws me to them? They're drawing you to them because they're purposely withholding information. And so in the case of the main character is to avoid judgment. But in my case, it was, I don't know. I didn't think about that part.
We got time. We
can get to it.
Yeah, we got time.
But essentially, you use mystery to draw people to you. And I can say that a lot of people, and I would say now, I don't know why people just come up and talk to me, but because I am just in general more aloof and use that control drama unconsciously because I don't do it on purpose. People are drawn to just ask me stuff, to come and talk to me. Yeah. So that's that. Cool. All right, now poor me. I don't like this one.
Why not?
Well, I mean, it doesn't relate to me.
I was going to say realistically, I understand why, but
I understand this one, but poor me is you use people's sympathy to create attention for yourself. So, you draw on people's emotions to create energy for yourself. So you're telling your sob story all the time, or you're trying to elicit guilt or grief or something like that to put more attention on yourself.
If any of you watch Miraculous Ladybug, that's like fucking Lila. Fuck Lila, bro. Anyway.
Yeah. And that's my twin, actually. I have a twin brother, and Kaylyn has seen it. But what some people don't know is that in my junior year of... Was it my junior or my senior year? It was my senior year. My senior year of college, my brother decided, my twin, that he was going to call his job and tell them that he wanted to commit suicide and leave a message and just not show up to work. And at the time, he and my aunt worked at the same place, so my aunt apparently was pregnant, didn't know that. And she calls me and she says, I don't know what's going on, Jabari's not answering the phone, and he just left a message saying that he wanted to commit suicide. All of this is going on. I'm on my way to work, and I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm all the way in fucking Ann Arbor. I am trying to call my mom, figure out what's going on, trying to call him. He's not answering the phone. We finally get through, and it's because he wants money to go buy a car to flip it. You have lost your damn mind. And then on top of that, I had my aunt patronizing me, telling me that, well, I don't know if patronizing is the right word, but she was getting after me, saying that I wasn't being a good sister because I don't listen to what he wants. And I'm like, he's my brother and he's 7 minutes older than me. And I was like, listening is a two-way street. I don't always have to just listen to him. And I do listen. He just gets mad that I don't give him the response or the answer that he wants.
Say you're not an ass kisser, all things considered.
Why, thank you. So, and I will take pride in that, and also take pride in saying that for the most part of my life, I wasn't an ass kisser. It was just towards my parents that I was.
I was saying, no, you're more of a people pleaser than an ass kisser, if that makes any sense.
I will accept that. Okay.
Well, you were.
I was. Yes. I was.
Growing out of it. I'm
growing up. So I kind of stopped talking to my aunt after that because I was like, this is bullshit, and I'm not about to kiss his ass. And
especially
then
after some shit like that, bro.
And then she told me that I also wasn't being a good niece to her because I wasn't calling her. And I'm like, but I'm younger than you. You're supposed to call me.
Come on now.
So,
yeah.
And I'm in college.
That was a great example of a poor me, though. Yeah,
and maybe she's also poor me too because she would do stuff like that. And that's probably why they get along so well. But they do that a lot. And it's just that he did it recently when I was here with Kaylyn, and she had to go with me to go find him because he's calling people saying that he left the house and he disappeared overnight. and my mom calling me and saying, I don't know where Jabari is. We don't know if he's safe. He left out the house in flip-flops and it's snow outside. And all because he needed to get his tire fixed.
That's not why they were fighting. He just refused to acknowledge that after the fact.
Yeah, and then he also refused to leave the girl. So there's that. Even though he said he doesn't want to be with her.
He's a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just... We have to talk about the codependency? Mm-hmm. That's on the schedule, ain't it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can talk about that.
I'm gonna say shameless plug of a future episode. Does that work?
Yeah, we can do that.
Cool.
So he used that a lot, and I guess that created me being even more aloof because I had a twin who would support me all the time. Even when I was in high school, I started crying because my mom told me I wasn't a good sister to him because he went and told half of a story about sitting at a lunch table full of girls, and he was offered to sit at the table with all the boys. So there was that. I was told I wasn't being a good sister, so I receded more and more and more into myself. Because it seemed like nobody was listening, nobody would hear what I had to say, and I didn't want to get hurt anymore. I didn't want anybody to hurt my feelings anymore. I didn't want anybody to judge me anymore. And then I had a mom who was an intimidator. I keep saying intimidator.
I kind of feel like she was both.
She probably is. So she used both intimidation and interrogation. And that made me recede even more into myself. And the reason I say that I don't know what my grandfather and my dad was is because they kind of were more, I only remember them being more positive influences on me. Now, my grandfather did do some stuff where he'd be like, oh, you're a foreigner because you're a girl, and I'm trying to have guy time with my grandsons and stuff like that, which hurt my feelings because I was into a lot of the stuff that they did, like comic books and stuff like that. So, I mean, there was that, but outside of that, he supported my reading, and told me that I was a good reader. He didn't make me feel a certain type of way about the way that I talked or anything like that. He would come to me and say, look, it's not what you're saying, it's sometimes the way that you say it, and that can make it seem like you're whining, but it's not your voice. I didn't listen, but that's what he was saying. And my dad was just always telling me that I was more of an optimistic person. That in itself, I can't say that I know what their control drama was. And for that reason, because that's the only memories that I have of them being more positive in the creation of the person that I am, I would say that they were more unconsciously progressive, because I don't think they were consciously aware of it, but they were more unconsciously progressive in this sixth insight.
Yeah, okay. I can't say the same at all. I feel like any kind of validation I got about stuff that I like was from outside my household. Yeah, because they're not going to hear this, but I still don't feel comfortable really saying it. My parents are they're both the youngest siblings in their family, and I think that leads to a lot of fundamental misunderstandings about what it means to be the oldest kid in the family. Even though it's just me and Tom, there are still vastly different expectations and patterns of behavior. Yes. So after reading this chapter, this was the first one where I was like, I have to take notes. Like, I need to write this down. And I was reading this at work. I read the whole book in like 3-4 days back in October. And I remember thinking for sure that my mom is a poor me and an interrogator. And my dad is an aloof and an intimidator. So for my mom, my biggest example of that, and I'm sorry to be like putting family business out there or whatever, when back in August, my brother was considering not going back to college because he knew he was going to have to do online classes. He knew he would rather put his time into music and making music and not actually sit down and do his classwork. He knew that being in the house, like forced to be in the house to do his classwork, was not going to be the best environment for him. He asked Kyra and I for support, and of course we offered that. She's one of the most understanding people I've ever met. I think I've grown to be pretty understanding.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're
She is very understanding. I am that. Now,
yeah. But yeah. So like we went into this conversation fully ready to have his back and all that, and then But another thing about me is I have very little sympathy for what I consider to be fake emotions. So during the conversation, she gets to crying and she's like, I have such big expectations for you. I want you guys to both have the best possible life. Like, I couldn't have provided this life for you without a job, blah, blah, blah. She's like crying and shit. And I'm like, didn't you do this same shit with me? Like, I don't know. It wasn't exactly that, but like, I'm not being sympathetic at all. And she immediately stops crying and gets angry as fuck at what I'm saying. She stopped listening to Tom. You know what I'm saying? Now look. Let me finish. Yeah, man. But then that's just the most recent example because she has grown up a lot herself, just having to deal with having grown kids. But when I was dropping out of college, the day that I most remember about all of that is I maybe told them on a Friday that I had stopped going to classes because they got a bill in the mail or something like that, because I had dropped out, my scholarship was no longer valid, so we owed them tuition money. So then we call my grandma, we have to get all the money together and go back up there and pay it off or whatever. And I was just going to go take care of it myself because I had my own car, but of course they didn't trust me at that point. So all three of us had to go up there. I don't know what Tom was doing. The whole 45-minute drive, silence. Nothing said that entire weekend about any of this. We get up there, we're sitting in public, and she starts going on about how could you do this, and like, do you even really think about the things that you're doing, and blah blah blah. In public, she starts playing the poor me role, but she didn't do none of that shit when it was just the three of us. And I will forever remember that, because no matter how much she's grown as a person, she can't outgrow that, and she proved that to me when she did the same shit with my brother. And then as far as my dad goes, because my mom has such a big personality, it's kind of hard to find your foothold in that without either being aloof or aggressive, which he can be both of. Like, more, I remember thinking, I don't even really know who this man is. I hear stories all the time about my mom's life and what she was doing when she was in her 20s and this and that. But then it wasn't until maybe like the last 2-3 years, I spent my birthday with my dad's family, and I learned more about him from that trip than I have from him. And I'm 23 years old, you know what I'm saying? I'm their first kid or whatever, but that's 23 years of me not really hearing shit about your life. And on the flip side of that is that when he gets fed up with being aloof, he immediately gets aggressive. And my first memory for that was and I told Kyra about this the other day. He and I got into some shit when I was in high school, and I distinctly remember being 15. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna go sit in my room. I don't need to be here. And then like 5 minutes later, this man comes upstairs and is like slamming doors and cussing and shit. I'm like, you're acting like you're my age. Why? Why are you being like this? You're trying to scare me into giving you a reaction. I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
I love Kaylyn's parents. Mm-hmm. But I've experienced quite about you. I have. They love me. I've been adopted as one of their children. But I'm an observant. Yeah. I'm an observant person, and so sometimes I just sit back and watch. I actually enjoy doing that. It was eye-opening for me with the situation that happened with Kaylyn's mom, where her mom started crying because from the situation that happened with when it happened with Kaylyn. And then her mom just constantly going on and on about, oh yeah, I would be so understanding. I know that school is not for everybody, blah, blah, blah. And so we go and we think, and I think Kaylyn had no pretenses or false pretenses about it. But I think that, it's going to go a little bit better. And to actually see her start crying because it's not what she wanted, I was completely floored, bro. Yeah, like I called my mom and thanked her for not forcing me to stay in college.
And then not only that, it was the whiplash of things, because she wasn't like genuinely sad. It was, it was manipulative.
Oh yeah, because her tears almost stopped immediately when Kaylyn made a comment, because I put a few comments in there myself. Of course I did.
Yeah, she's fair.
And when Kaylyn made a certain comment about something about dropping out.
Oh, yeah, I was like, I'm a failure or some shit like that.
No. It wasn't that specifically. I do want to bring that up because Tom made a point to say, we're not about to do that. Like, he put that, I immensely respect him for that.
I respect both of you because you both denied that, but the point is, in that specific context, in her eyes, that's still the truth.
That's how she sees it. It's not the truth, but that's how she sees it.
In her eyes, yes, it is.
But, okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's true for my life, but yeah, for her life, that's how she's seeing things.
But when I tell you that she told her, you're not a part of this conversation because you didn't finish, I got offended. Because Kaylyn's my friend. I'm very protective. Yeah, I got immediately pissed. But that's besides.
And then not only that, I dropped out because of mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Because, okay, what some people don't know, and I think we've actually said it before, she actually talked to me before she dropped out. And we had a conversation about it where she was like, I don't know what I should do. And anyway.
Yeah, man. We talked about it on the podcast. I dead ass was like, I'm either going to drop out of school or I'm going to die.
And we were like, well, drop out it is. But it was more serious than that.
Yeah, I was being dead ass, tears streaming down my face and shit,
We had an interesting conversation about it. And I was like, realistically, you can't put your life depending on a degree if it's going to put your life at risk.
Because I didn't even want a degree in the first place. I never envisioned myself actually going to college. And then when it came like junior year and people were like, what do you want to do? I had no fucking clue. And I couldn't say that because my mom's an English teacher who had very high aspirations.
Because she wants to keep pretenses up with the other teachers. Because she's actually said that before. And the funny thing is that she said it in reference as a type thing towards other teachers who do that with their kids.
Man, she literally makes jokes all the time about how other teachers aren't aware of their kids and shit like that.
But then she did the exact same thing, but she won't acknowledge it.
Because she can't. Because another part of her being a poor me is that she can't accept responsibility for negative things. Accountability, that's the word. She can't hold herself accountable for areas where she feels like she may have failed. And not in like a literal way per se where it's like, oh, I didn't do well on that test, I failed or whatever, but like in a conceptual sense where like you feel like you failed at being a parent. You didn't. And I have to say this now every time we get into stuff because I was their first kid. Of course you didn't know what you were doing. But you still did a lot of things wrong. And I have to acknowledge that for my own growth and healing. But she can't do that. And literally, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm dominating, but there was a point where we were in the car, like I had to take her to get her car out the shop or some shit like that. And that was the first time I'd ever said to her, I was like, and you're not even sorry. Like, I can forgive you, but you're not even sorry. Or at least if you are, you're never going to say that to me. And she stopped talking about it that day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've had other conversations. Because this is mostly when I was in high school. We were bickering a lot. And it started getting more and more intense. And I'm just kind of, at some point, I was like, I'm 16. You're in your 50s. Why am I the one that has to fix this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm aloof. And I think, I don't know what my secondary drama is, but I know for a fact I developed a lot of aloofness, specifically from between when I was 14 and when I was 19.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And you brought up something that reminded me when I first came here. Man, that is gonna make me cry a little bit. But the situation between me and my mom right now is still fairly new, so it's still raw, it's still an open wound. So I do get emotional about it sometimes. And then part of the reason or part of the way that I tried to deal with it was detaching myself from it, which is, again, a aloof trait. But when I first left the house, it was because my mom used an intimidation tactic against me. But regardless, it elicited a response that she wasn't expecting. Part of my aloofness is to avoid situations, and so I packed up some of my important shit and left. And no, I don't regret that decision in my aloofness, because that brought me into a more a better position to be more open. But it was definitely necessary. But right after I left, I will never forget, instead of apologizing the day of, one, she called my aunt, and I'm sure she didn't tell her the full story, and then tried to get my aunt to elicit a response to get a question of, to get an answer out of me about where I was. And it didn't work. I could hear the disappointment in my aunt's voice, because she thought that she was going to get it out of me, but I already knew what she was doing. And then what happened is my aunt said, well, your mom hasn't heard from you. I said, but she hasn't called me. I said, if she called, I would have answered, but she didn't call me. And she was like, oh, well, okay. So then after that, my mom called not even 10 minutes later. Not even 5 minutes later. I was
going to say, it was pretty much immediate.
And the first thing that she said was, stop this bullshit and bring your ass home. That's it. Not acknowledging what she did, not acknowledging what she said. And then when I left, and she made the comment, was like, you just need to just bring your ass home or whatever. And I'm like, no. She told me that I didn't sound like me, because she was so used to me just saying, okay, whatever. And I was just like, I will come and talk to you tomorrow, but I'm not coming back. And so then when we came and talked the next day, she didn't want to talk because it wasn't in the exact scenario of the way that she wanted to do it, because my sister wasn't there. And I was like, the point is that you need to talk to me regardless of if it's not the way that you wanted it to be done, or the exact scenario that you want it to be done shouldn't stop you from getting the actual result from at least half of it. Or try to resolve some of what you got, because she kept saying, I just feel like it's just a little bit of misunderstandings that's going on and stuff like that. And she said the whole reason that she had gotten really, really drunk the night before I left, and it didn't stop, or the comments and the disdain comments and the threatening, because she did threaten my life, didn't stop by the next morning. Like it was
like 4 or 5 in the morning when you texted me.
Yeah, it was 4 or 5 in the morning when I got the comment, and I text Kaylyn because I was afraid for my life. And I realized that at that point, was I gonna stay until she was drunk enough to actually proceed with what she's threatening to do, or am I just gonna leave? Like, I don't want to play Russian roulette with my life at this point. And part of the reason I stayed was because I was like, I'm okay with being a buffer so she doesn't take it out on my siblings. End result is just she's never taken it out on my younger siblings. I've been gone for damn near a year, and they haven't had to deal with nearly any of the stuff that I've dealt with. Like, there's just been so many different things. But anyway,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do kind of want to bring it back specifically to this. I think we might need to have a whole episode about that, because you clearly need to get some stuff off your chest.
Well, damn, now I feel bad.
You should, look, don't feel bad about needing an event, but
we need to get back on track.
I was gonna say, I want to acknowledge the strength it took to make that decision and to be solid in it, because she definitely was hounding her for like weeks after that, trying to get her to come back. She pretended she was nice for a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
She gave crocodile tears, and she apologized. That's why I was getting to where I said it didn't stop, because she told me that it was just when you drink alcohol, it doesn't just disappear out your system. I was still a little bit drunk, is what her excuse was, but there was still no apology.
I was gonna say, and for me, when I get drunk, I get real horny, bro. Like, you know, look, because to just be realistic about shit, my issues that I'm still dealing with are more about sexual expression and feeling like I belong somewhere, like I'm truly grounded to this world. You know what I'm saying? So those are the issues that come up for me when I'm drunk. If you're drunk and you're slurring your own child, you clearly either have some jealousy issues, in my opinion, because her 23, 24-year-old daughter is the main provider of this household, I don't think to this day, like, not to slander her, I don't think her mom has a means of providing for the kids. She still was trying to get money out of Kyra even after all of that. And Kyra, because she is a kind soul and because she's morally responsible, was still providing her with food, money, whatever it was. She just was not giving her own time. You know what I'm saying? So I want to acknowledge the strength in Kyra's decision to separate herself from that situation, all the growth that you've done in the years since then, because you're not the same person that you were. And then the fact that you're even comfortable talking about this to this extent, knowing that this is going to go on the internet, even if you choose to cut this out, you still chose that. You still had the courage to do that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But
I was going to say, to loop that back, that's what I was going to say. The line that I took out, our control dramas define how we seek to siphon energy from others. But once we, and then on page 131, once we see our drama, we are truly free to become more than the unconscious act that we play. I remember when Kyra first got here, I was reading a book called Women Who Love Too Much to Deal with Some of My Issues, and she read like a couple lines and was like, oh, I don't like that, and has not touched it since.
I have
not. But I haven't presented it to her since then, so give her some credit for that. But the flip side of that is she didn't want to talk about any of this when she first got here because she was still playing into her control drama. You know what I'm saying? So I think you talking about it, that's why I had to give you all the praise for that, because you are breaking out of that play. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Even if we're still playing different characters or whatever, because we're both realistically still young as fuck, and this is all advice coming from people who are like in their late 30s, early 40s or whatever. We're trying to be mature adults now so that we don't have to worry about it by then.
Yeah, I don't want to be 40 trying to figure this out.
Come on now. Like, I feel like, because I've always heard when you have good people, like, you know, if you always have to be the bigger person, stop hanging around little people. I don't feel like I'm around little people anymore. And I feel like because of that...
Figuratively or literally?
I'm sure, so don't say that. Alright, don't come at me like that, bro. Also, Kyra is one of those tall girls that think she's tall. You know what I'm saying?
Oh!
I'm just gonna look, because you're not... I'm giant.
I'm not.
But you're not short either. And yeah. I would assume, based off of that definition, that means you're average height. But
I'm not average.
Yeah, see? There we go. Yeah, ma'am.
I refuse to accept that I'm average.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not.
Uh-huh. I refuse to accept short slander, so I'm going to call you average. No, it's okay. It's okay. That was all jokes. But point being, I think...
She means that she thinks I'm tall.
You're taller than me, yes. No. One, make it more natural for you to be authentic, or two, will call you on your bullshit, makes it easier for you to grow up. Because one thing that I remembered about the main character, now mind you, I haven't read this book since October, and it's now May 3rd. He was he's been learning from a bunch of priests. Mm-hmm. And one of them was like asking him, and he called him out on it. He was like, why are you dodging the question type shit? You know what I'm saying? And then he was like, you are aloof. And that got him thinking about his family, his past, and shit like that. And he's like...
Actually, it was two of the priests that had to do that to him. Because the first one was saying... Because he's thinking as he's doing it, he's calling himself being cautious about it. Which a lot of times especially those who are aloof in their control drama, think it as a way of being cautious and being careful. Now, don't mistake that like for just being all willy-nilly. You can still be cautious, but also don't play into being too aloof just for the sake of trying to overprotect yourself. Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, so I'm realizing, okay, part of me trying to at least correct that within myself is now I have to make sure that I say, like, I don't, because, you know, oftentimes I will take long pauses to think about what I'm saying, but I don't realize how that comes across to other people where I'm just kind of sitting there. So I have to say, hold on, I need to think about that, or like, I didn't consider that, I don't know if I like that. I just have to say exactly what it is that I'm feeling, because I don't want there to be any room for any misinterpretation. I'm not trying to be aloof, but I need a second to think. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Stuff like that.
And I think aloofness, most people are just kind of recede into themselves and just don't ever get to the question. They just completely avoid it. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was doing. And the priest that he was driving up with, and going back to the story, he recognized this and then made a comment about it, but then didn't really dive into it. And he just told him, because actually it was brought up before then by the main character when he was not the main character, a supporting character named Will. And he kept saying, you know, you're going to make yourself miss a perfect coincidence if you keep avoiding or trying to withhold information. And that was all leading towards this control drama. Now, he was doing it, he wasn't telling him that this was his control drama because he wasn't far enough to really understand it.
Will is just an angel. He's just guiding him on the path.
So, he didn't need to recognize that until now. And so then the second priest that's involved in this situation or in this particular scene, he's like, this is what your control drama is. And because this particular priest understood that his purpose in life was to understand control drama so he can lead people out of it to their ultimate life, so they can progress past it.
And that reminded me of back at the third insight, where it was like people choose where they stop at. I thought that was fascinating.
And then also, this is one thing that I wanted to say that I thought was really important, was that I don't think that you completely relinquished your control drama. You just learned how to manipulate it in a more positive way, because if you read the story, you'll see it, but a lot of the characters, or the ones who are guiding the main character, are using control drama in a different way to elicit him to, progress further. Okay, so they identified the main Will character as being aloof, and he uses that to prompt the main character into thinking more. And then I forget their name. Sebastian? Is it Sebastian? Sanchez, yes. The priest Sanchez, he is, and his control drama is interrogator. But if you notice, he prompts a lot of questions out of him. Why do you think this way? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? To elicit more thinking. But they still use their control drama, but they use it in a more positive standing. And I think that's the point. It's not to just completely get rid of it, because you never can, but to use it in a more positive way, where you're not using it to draw attention to yourself, but more so have that person that you're interacting with.
Introspective,
for that character or that person to draw more energy within themselves, because they're not putting their energy on you, they're putting their energy on themselves and reflecting on themselves. So.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite examples of that was one of the characters from the third insight. I think it was Sarah. They met up somewhere, and this guy was like attacking Will, like getting super aggressive, and she was like, why are you so angry? You know what I'm saying? Just directly ask them about their control drama, and they'll have to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're getting a little lengthy here, so I think we'll make this a stopping point. Kyra's gonna edit this whole chunk. Yay!
Okay, great.
Wait, I you got it on the internet. Yeah. High five.
No.
Oh, no. All right, we'll be back. Alright, we're back. And I'll introduce, we'll just do the same kind of setup. I had kept this one brief. Following your intuition is the seventh insight. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I felt like, and I wrote down that this one was one of the easiest for me to learn, because at the time I was more involved with trusting my intuition. I think I've gotten away from that at this point. That's just a personal note. But, here, let me read the quote. From page 156 of the copy we have, The 7th deals with the process of consciously evolving yourself and staying alert to every coincidence, every answer the universe provides for you.
And the reason I think that this is ironic is because I was recently talking to Kaylyn about not following my own intuition, and not to be like conceited or anything about it. I was like, I need to stop second guessing myself or trying to come up with questions or look outside of me for answers when I've, in the center of everything, have always been right about how I initially felt about a situation. And but then I started questioning myself and then looking for validation outside of it, which caused the issues. So I thought that was ironic for this to be so soon after that.
I think, to put it in the context of this book specifically, you overthinking it caused more aloofness on your part, probably.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's just a hypothesis. I don't really know what's going on in your head. I only know what you share. Yeah, so then, right? And then I wanted to read, I got 2 quotes from the same page here. I'm going to read just the first one. When a thought comes, we must ask why. Why did this particular thought come now? How does it relate to my life questions? Taking an observer position helps us release our need to control everything. It places us in the flow of evolution. So my example for that is, what's a good one? What's a juicy one?
Juicy.
Yeah. When I was deciding to go to massage school, I literally heard about it probably about 2 months before classes were starting, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying? I talked to, it was so funny. I went and talked to my grandma, my mom, and all that. Now, mind you, at this point, I've been a quote-unquote college dropout for like 2 years, or like a year. It was only a year and a half. Holy shit, that was such a long time. Like, so much life happened between those 2 points. I dropped out in like April 2017. This is July 2018 when I was learning to do massage school. I went and talked to everybody, and they're like, you want to massage people? You don't even like people. I'm like, yes, I know that, but for whatever reason, this just feels like the right thing to do. And then I went up to visit the school with my sister and best friend who shares my name with me. And she was like, I like this place. They have like organic, she was vegan at the time, and they had like the organic vegan snacks for her baby and shit like that. She was very happy about it.
The place still vegan.
No, she's technically not. They eat meat. She just cooks vegan recipes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's, I don't know what to call it. Naturalist? Yeah. Not quite a vegan. Because, yeah, she's also eating dairy products and shit. That's super irrelevant. But yeah, point being, something in me told me that I needed to be there. I didn't know what it was. I don't even really like massaging people, mind you, but a part of me needed to be at that school specifically. Yeah, that's a positive example. Usually my intuition is very negative, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't quite think of a specific situation where my intuition, because it just come and goes. Mm-hmm. And usually, again, my initial reaction is right, and if I follow through with it, I don't really think about it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's how it's. My favorite quote that I made up, because people were always complaining like, "Oh, you're not doing enough," and like this was when I was in high school. I used to micromanage like my friends and stuff, and when I would tell people what I was doing, they're like, "Oh, you're doing too much, blah 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 blah. Your friends must feel like whatever." No, because when you do a job right, it's almost as if it didn't happen, because the goal is to increase your flow, right?
Yeah.
Follow the flow of evolution. So when you're following your intuition perfectly, you're just doing whatever the thing was. You know what I'm saying?
I know a good one. I hate to keep talking about it because it's still talking about that one person. But,
yeah.
That was the one thing that I did. My intuition told me to... oh God, I hope he doesn't listen to this. I don't think that he is, but I was talking to Kaylyn about my life plan, about how I would eventually have a kid at 30 if I wasn't with somebody. And I remember just thinking, I wonder who that person would be or how I would do it, because I don't want to be just with some random person to have a kid with. And this person immediately popped up, like, I think a day later. And then or it actually may have been the same day, because I think we were talking about it at the time, and then he messaged me.
I think there was a little bit more time between it than that. Maybe okay. Still, it was not a lot though, definitely.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is perfect. I know this person, we're cool, this is great. And then when I decided that I was going to tell this person that I had a crush on them when I was in college, I used the excuse of being drunk. But
well, first of all, she flipped like 18 different coins, and she was questioning for like 2 weeks.
It wasn't 2 weeks.
I know,
but my intuition had told me just do it. And although I was kind of like second guessing into not doing it, I would have fell back into how it was before. I went for it, and it ended up being a really good decision. Yeah, although I don't like the outcome at this moment, or at this point in time, it wasn't ultimately a bad decision.
I would say she shot her shot and it went in.
It did.
Buckets.
But anyway, that was my thing. But what I found interesting about the 7th insight, it was make sure that you keep your life questions, or remember your life questions, because it's so easy to forget them. Yeah. Because then when you get the answers, you don't know what to apply them to, because you forgot what your question was in the first place.
And I can speak to that a lot, because I spent most of 2019 being like what I would consider now to be hyper spiritual, where I was like entrenched in all of that. Thank you. I was entrenched in like learning about crystal polarity and chakras and Reiki and meditating all the time and yada yada, but none of that was naturally facilitated by me. It was almost all by the school, which is why I needed to be there, because now I'm in a place where I'm like, I know what I need to do, I just don't feel like it. Point being though, like I was having a lot of at the time I considered it relationship struggles, but it was really, number 1, codependency, number 2, lack of self-esteem, and then number 3, I don't know how I would quantify that, but I was not working on developing myself the way I probably would have wanted to now with this mindset I have. Like a year and a half later though, you know what I'm saying? Or I guess bordering on 2 years. Point being, I was focused on a lot of shit that was not productive. And I remember all the questions I had about my life at the time were like, how can I make this work with this person, or what am I doing wrong, how can I be better, blah 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 blah. And when that relationship ended, instead of, and I criticized some of my friends about this, so I do have to like retroactively apologize, I guess, but I jumped right into not relationships, but like situationships with like 2-3 other people, almost back to back to back, because I just didn't want to deal with myself. I wasn't depressed, but like that was actual sadness. I think depression sadness is something different. That feels hopeless. It feels dark. It feels like a hole, you know?
I can attest to that.
Yeah, man, but like sadness just kind of feels heavy. That's way different. I never felt necessarily heavy okay, let me say it like this. I feel like depression pulls you, sadness weighs on you, if that makes any sense. So one's on top, one's below. Anyway, point being, I just felt really heavy all the time. And I remember I was hanging out with person number 2 out of 3, or technically 3, we'll call him 3. And I was driving to his house, and I just started to feel bad. And I was like, do I even like you? Like, do I want to be here? And like, in reality, I liked who they were as a person, but, and this is why I ended up reading Women Who Love Too Much, I liked the potential of who I thought he could be more than the reality of who he was in front of me. And I stepped back from that situation, but still didn't actually reflect on it until months later. And Kyra tried to give me more credit for this than I feel like I deserved, but she was like, but you knew something was off and you tried to take a step back and blah blah blah. Yes, but for me, if I didn't learn the lesson, or like if I didn't pay attention to why those things were happening, then I didn't actually do things properly. And yes, I did figure it out in hindsight, where like, what the point of Women Who Love Too Much is basically not loving yourself enough to maintain your high standards, let's say it like that. And I want to make a whole episode about that, because I haven't really thought about it in a while, but I was basically obsessed with people as a means to not have to think about what was wrong in my life. And I know that sounds so cliche, because plenty of women do that, plenty of guys do that, but I was actually starting to pay attention. I have like I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot, but I have whole ass documents on my laptop where I was like, literally from the time, or like the person I lost or gave my virginity to, I don't like to say I lost it, I gave it to him, that was a choice. The person I gave my virginity to, I literally had probably about a total of 4 months between that time in 2015 when I stopped talking to him to like, this was mid 2019 where I was not talking to anyone, like sexually, romantically, whatever. I was not by myself for 4 years. Yeah. And like, I know I'm young or whatever, but that's the time when you're supposed to be developing your brain. And I spent all that time worried about niggas. Hold on.
She was like, let me correct myself.
Because it wasn't just other people. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with the fact that I spent a large part of 2020 concerned about Kyra. Because at the end of the day, I think it benefited both of us. She was willing to give the time and attention back to me that I put into her. So that's not a waste. Dealing with guys, however, especially immature guys, niggas that didn't even like me for real. You know what I'm saying? These are people that did not have my best interest at heart. They didn't even actually fuck with me. If I was in my car and that bitch was on fire, they would be the last person I called. And it got to the point where in my last relationship, I was having a lot of health challenges, and I was like, could I trust him to take me to the hospital? No, I could not reasonably trust him to do that. And I'm like, why the fuck am I still here? You know what I'm saying? And I still wasn't finna break up with this thing. I tried like 3 different times, and it only really solidified because he left for California. And then my stupid ass immediately hopped into other situations after that. Then I read the book, and I was like, damn, I'm like insane. I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying?
See, my revelation period for me in that respect was the story I had to edit. And because the woman was talking about achieving self-love, I had to take a step back and was like, I'm not loving myself enough. And like circling back to like not forgetting your questions, I had wrapped so much of my identity into parenting my younger siblings, taking care of my mom, that I forgot who I was and what I wanted. And even though I was trying to hold on to it like water slipping through my fingers, I couldn't, and I was miserable. And I was getting answers, but wasn't paying attention to them because I was so focused on everything else. So then I let myself get pressured into being in a relationship with a guy that I did not, that I was not interested in at all. And realistically, he wasn't interested in me. He just got upset that when I realized what I was worth and I wasn't trying to be bothered with him anymore, he got upset because I was like, I'm not
dealing with this, bro. Niggas like attention more than girls. Never forget that.
There you go. So, but that was because I allowed myself to be pressured into that, because I was like, well, I am at this age and I should be in a relationship that's supposed to be more lasting. And I was letting people make me feel older than I actually was. And at the time I was 22. And I remember my brother, who was 7 at the time, coming up and asking me, so when you gonna get married? Because you're getting old. And what made it worse is I was like, you didn't even ask Jabari that.
But he's in a relationship, so it looks different. Yeah.
So it was just but seeing that was just like, okay, I'm not loving myself enough. I need to take a step back. And that's one reason that, although I don't like that the situation with the other person had to end, it had to end at that point right then, because I wasn't loving myself enough. So there was no way that would have been a good thing.
It wouldn't work.
And so, I mean, it could work in the future.
I was gonna say, man, there's divine timing is real, and we never know how things are gonna work out till they work out. But
and the point is right, you know. But the thing is that certain things happen for a reason, and realistically, had I forced or tried to make a way for it to work out at that time, it wouldn't have been a good ending in the end. Now, it could come back and be the way it's supposed to be because I'm loving myself more now. I'm not in the same position or in the same sadness that I was in when I stopped talking to the first person.
I was going to say, that was, man, so much has changed just from January. It's hard to imagine it's only been 5 months.
Well, for me, it was February.
Yeah, even better, man. It's only fucking May. We're not even halfway through the year yet.
So I'm grateful for it. I don't have to like it, but I'm grateful for it.
And I kind of feel like you might okay, I haven't said this to her, so expose. But I feel like you might get to a point where you love yourself too much to even be thinking about this person anymore, because I've had that happen. Like I chose to be celibate last year, and that kind of reshaped a lot of my interest in people. So I think, let's say you do get the knock boots or whatever, if he's not meeting your standards in other ways, I don't think that'll get you as caught up as it would an adolescent person, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because it's so hard not to get wrapped up in people that you're being intimate with, but I think that's why it's so important that you love yourself, so that you can be like, this is good, but all the rest of this is dog shit, and I don't deserve that. Yeah. And
realistically, like, with the other person that I was in a situationship with, there was a lot of stuff that he was doing that I was not okay with. When I tell you that he talked to me like I was stupid,
mind you, she's smarter than him.
Why, thank you. But there's a lot of stuff that he did, and I just didn't like it. But I let everyone else let me think that I wasn't valid in my concerns.
I was gonna say, like, you know, they have
my intuition about it.
Yes,
because that's what it was.
Black people try to make you think you gotta suffer to be with the nigga, bro. I would rather die alone or act on my half gay and just be with the woman. I like niggas, bro. I'm not gonna hold you. I have a preference for men, but if it's that or suffer, fuck do I look like? My God,
I'd rather stay a virgin at that point.
No, still get you some, but you know, just
that's
let me.
But what I'll say is that I ignore my intuition with that person, because there was a lot of times where it was just like, and I told Kaylyn this, the first time I heard his voice, I hated it. Oh my God, I hated it. And then one time when I saw him, it was just something about him, about his air, that just didn't sit well with me. I just didn't like it. And I just didn't like it. But then I convinced myself that I should, and that I was being overly picky. And it ended up being a bad situation for me. And it, again, like she said, made me lower my standards when I didn't need to. And my turning point for me was, I was talking back to him for the third time, completely self-inflicted. I didn't tell Kaylyn this, so I'm about to expose myself a little bit, but I'm sure she already knew. Each time that I was talking back to him, I initiated it. Every time. And then he would be like, oh, I just didn't think you would want to talk to me again. And then we would talk for a couple months, and he'd disappear. And like, when I say disappear, like ghost me type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the third time, I was going, my sister had her breast reduction surgery, and she was having some complications, and I was going back and forth in between that. And I was trying to convince myself that I was talking to him just for fun, which I think to a certain extent I was, but not completely. And then I just remember sitting there thinking, what the fuck am I doing? I was just like, I'm not into this.
Always relational.
I was like, I'm not into this. I don't want to be bothered. I don't even like you. I just remember thinking, I just remember feeling I don't want to be bothered with you. I don't have time for you. It wasn't more so of me, although it was partially me taking care of my sister that put me out of it, that brought me into realizing that I don't like you. I really don't.
Yeah, man, and it sounds so easy to say all this shit in hindsight, or like it should have been obvious or whatever, but when you're emotionally invested in your fantasies, it's hard to pull back from that, because I can't even say you were emotionally invested in him. There's nothing to invest in. That's like you know those like candy machine, those arcade games where it's just a bunch of coins and it's like a thing that pushes and you're pushing your quarters in there hoping that you hit the jackpot or whatever, knowing that shit is never gonna pay out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fucking waste of money. Anyway.
But the thing is I had ignored all the signs that were coming to me for it. Like what the seventh insight illustrates is that there are daydreams, there are coincidences that will come to you that will give you the answer that you need, and it's just up to you to listen. Going back to him, I fantasize a lot, and God, I'm gonna expose myself a little bit more.
As I said, you don't have to keep that in mind.
I was fantasizing what my life would be like with him. And I was miserable.
Man, same.
Oh my
God.
I just kept thinking of living in an apartment, although I would never resent my kids, living with kids with him, and just over in general being unhappy. And then I told myself, I'm overthinking it. I'm making myself not want to be with him, and that's going to make me be alone for the rest of my life, blah, 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 as if that's a bad thing. But it was just like I was getting those daydreams constantly. It wasn't even like something that just happened once and then I had more good than bad. I would even imagine like he was the first person that I had sexual daydreams about, but he wasn't there. Like I could not, the image was of a blank person.
Not
and
him
it wasn't him. And I was like, oh, okay, but then I kept going. So all of these signs, all of these daydreams, because it's not just dreams that you dream at night, your daydreams, because they just randomly come to your mind. These are coincidences that are perfect coincidences. Let them happen.
Come on.
And they tell you something. Like even if it's a bad dream, it reflects what your fears are, and then you have to relate it to your life. Like in this book, he was having this dream where he was going down a river that he thought was gonna hurt him, and it had a key, and so he fought against it, and it actually dragged him down, as opposed to if he actually had went with the flow of the river, it would have taken him straight to the key. And so he's sitting in a cell with this guy because he got captured for having the insights on him, and he's expressing what the seventh insight is, and he says, so how does that relate to what you're going through now? And it was telling him that although he thinks that being locked up in this cell was a bad situation, it actually, because he thought it may possibly be, what's the word? It may possibly harm him. Realistically, they weren't treating them bad, and they were eating good food and stuff like that, given exercise time, and it was. And the soldiers who were guarding them were just in general, like they weren't really paying attention to them, and they weren't malicious. Like they were smiling and stuff like that, and not in a
like in a friendly way, yeah, but like in a polite way.
And so he was like, if I keep fighting against this, then it's gonna drag me down in the dark where I actually do hurt myself. Or I could go with the flow of it and actually get the answer I'm supposed to get. And so the point of that is like take your daydreams and put them in, or your dreams or daydreams and put them into context like that, because even some bad dreams can have the same thing. And go ahead.
No, I just took out a bunch of quotes that really stood out for me, and the next one was about negative comments, so I was excited that you brought that up. That's all. Go ahead.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, no,
but I want to so the reason that was really, really reflective for me was because again, like I said, I daydream a lot. I don't come up with stuff to daydream about. Some of the stuff just comes to me. Now, this one I'm not going to expose myself on, but Kaylyn knows about it. But there was another dream that I had, and I was constantly having these more frequently, and it was my mom using my siblings to get to me, and then ultimately I will get hurt. And I had to, and reading this, I actually was able to put it in context because I didn't like those dreams. And I had to realize that me allowing my mom to use my siblings against me is what's really harming me and putting me in a bad situation, when realistically they're never going to be in a bad or hurt without me. Yeah. And then also it was more so like the emotional thing, like her saying that, oh, see, she really doesn't love you because she's not coming to see you, but I knew that it was a trap type of thing, and me falling into the trap anyway just because I wanted to validate that they know that I love them unconditionally. And Kaylyn has told me about it. She was like, they are never going to forget how much you love them.
Come on now. Never. Especially because they're not like little kids. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And then I was like, you're right. And when I thought about that, I was like, me constantly trying to force myself into a situation where I can see them, where I can make sure that I'm doing this, or that they know, so she's not telling them certain stuff about me. It doesn't matter what she says to them because they already know who I am. So I don't need to do that anymore. And so that was me putting a bad dream into context because that's what it was telling me. I need to stop making myself a target for that.
Cool.
The other one is remember the wedding thing?
No, but we could talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last quote that I have for this chunk of the episode, I'm actually gonna. I didn't realize, because again I read this months ago. I didn't realize that all of the last few quotes that I had are from the same chunk of conversation, like exactly the same. So after the comment where it places us in the flow of evolution, the main character asks, but what about negative thoughts? Those fear images of something bad happening, such as someone we love getting hurt or of not achieving something we very much want. And the priest responds, very simple. Is this the priest at this point? He's in the jail. Okay, yeah. This is somebody he's locked up with who's meant to teach him specifically this insight.
Yeah.
So he goes, very simple. The seventh insight says that fear images should be halted as soon as they come. Then another image, one with a good outcome, should be willed through the mind. Soon, negative images will almost never happen, and your intuitions will be about positive things. When negative images come after that, the manuscript says that they should be taken very seriously and not followed. For instance, if the idea comes to you that you're going to have a wreck in a truck and someone comes along and offers you a ride in a truck, don't accept it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that one is specifically interesting because I see a lot of like specifically Black Twitter being like, my grandma woke up and said she had a dream. She's like, stay in the house today. And then I ended up listening to her. My friends all got in a crash and now they're all in hospital. And if I had gone with them, I would have been in the seat that got hit and I would have died. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. Because to some extent, and I shit on religious people for various other reasons, but to some extent, if you're truly devoted in the way that I feel like you're supposed to be, you were living a life of positivity, so when negative things happen, you know that is something to be cautious of. You know what I'm saying? It's not something to harp on, it's not something to obsess over. It's something, it's a guideline still. You know what I'm saying?
That actually reminded me of something about the sixth insight, specifically religious type of stuff, and I just want to just insert it really quick. They say that you're supposed to use your past, like your parents are essentially supposed to be opposites, because they both bring a different side of the coin to bring you together, or to bring it to you, so then you can learn from it and expand on it. So if you have parents who are, one thing is recognizing what their control drama is, but then recognizing why it's a control drama. So like for the main character, when I said that his mom was more religious and his dad was more of a free spirit, he had to understand that his purpose was to find out, after going past his control drama, using that to figure out how to be live life to the fullest spiritually. And so, just because she bought a religion, that's what that brought to me.
I think that's
but going back, seventh insight.
Well, no, I think that ties in because, at least for me specifically, I have a friend that I met on Twitter last year. He's one of the few people that watches the entire podcast.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Shout out to Dominic.
Shout out to Liz. But she's been listening religiously as well. Go ahead.
Whoop whoop. Okay, but yeah, so I met him because I was on a more spiritual path, but I also at the time was considering magic because I at some point was like, I believed in magic, like genuinely believed magic was real since I was a kid, and then watching stuff like Disney and all that just solidified that for me. Instead of like creating the thought, I just believed magic was real. And then when I learned how to do Reiki, I didn't even question it. I wasn't like, oh my God, what is this? Like, you know what I'm saying? I just was like, yes. I don't know how I know what this is, but I knew exactly what I was trying to do that day. And then learning more about intuition and chakras and things like that, I kind of was like, so then magic must be real. How can I work that into my life? And then he pops up. And that's a coincidence, number one. Number two, we haven't been able to actually hang out more than once because of the pandemic, but recently, like within the last 2 weeks, he just out of the blue was like, I think you'd like this, and sent me a comic book. And it was basically detailing how to encourage it was a guide for magical practice, let me say it like that. But it wasn't some shit like, oh, go grab a bunch of sticks and make a pentagram, or go, like grab a bunch of herbs or whatever. It was sit down and meditate every day until you can meditate for 10 minutes with nothing on your mind. Sit and stare at a candle for 10 minutes, like step by step, small things that I've heard other people say. I've heard monks do that. You know what I'm saying? So in that sense, it's still spiritual, and I could choose to turn that into magic. And I got like conflicted because I had been telling Kyra, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel I was in a period of rest for a really long time. I was in a period of learning for even longer. And now I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something with that. Where am I supposed to be going? And then he hit me up. I don't even think it was 2 days later. You know what I'm saying? And then I had to tell Kyra, I was like, well, part of me really wants to do this, but then the other part of me is like, why? Like, what would I be getting out of this? And to some extent, I'm still bullshitting on it. I haven't started or anything like that. But I feel like if I don't, soon the window will close, and I'll just be as frustrated as I was at the end of last year, where I don't feel like I'm buried. Oh, that's what the coincidence was. I saw on Twitter that was like, take one of those chakra quizzes if you've been seeing these numbers a lot. And I usually hate that kind of shit, but I have been seeing a lot of like repeating numbers, so I was like, fine, I'll do it. I took 5, and they all gave me the same 3 chakras. So I was like, okay, I apparently need to work on that. And then the day after that, which was 2 days after Kyra and I had our talk, was when he sent me some information. And I was like, I really probably need to do something with this, because I feel like, what did I describe it as? I want to be more than human. You know what I'm saying? Not that there's anything wrong with being human, not that I'm trying to be a god or anything like that. I am God. Mind you. Keep that in mind, fellas. But I'm not trying to be like the creator. Let me say it like that. I'm not trying to be the source of all that is, whatever you want to call it. But I feel, I was reading the Bible actually, and it describes Adam and Eve eating the apple as becoming gods. They have the knowledge of gods now. Hypothetically, isn't that all I would be doing if I learned how to manifest properly, right? That's a whole other conversation for a different day, but that is a point of intuition for me that's come up really recently that I didn't even think about until now. And that's a form of coincidence in itself.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to say.
I don't have anything else I want to talk about on here.
Yeah, I was going to say, we probably got more to chit-chat about behind the scenes. Also, we have a Patreon, so keep an eye out for some horrible videos that we recorded.
Oh, it's gonna be so funny.
It's gonna be extremely embarrassing.
She said that's so much.
Yeah, not happy about it. And it's completely self-inflicted. But hey, pay me $5 and then you'll be able to see it. And I think that's a fair trade. Embarrassment for money,
and you get to see our faces in live time.
Come on now,
or real time,
yes.
not live.
Yes, semantics. But anyway, yeah, man. Shameless Plug Dominant, Shameless Plug Liz. As always, Shameless Plug Kalfani Khan. It's the summer. He doesn't have any more classes to worry about. The boy is almost done with his exams. Keep an eye out for the moves he's finna be making. Please. Don't get left behind. In like 5 years, you'd be like, damn, they told me about this nigga. I should have hopped on the board then.
Don't get left behind.
Hop on the gravy train as it's getting started, fellas. Yeah, man, literally. All right. Also, just
okay. Last minute, I forgot to tell Kaylyn this. I am getting a shout out in a article, and I will leave the link once I get it.
We'll post it on Instagram and Twitter. Please follow the Twitter. We got way more followers on Instagram right now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think
Instagram is more popular
for sane people. Yes, I will agree with that 100%. Twitter's where the crazy niggas are at. But anyway, follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I am Kaylyn was here _,
and I am on Instagram and Twitter. Khaira _is _here.
Yep. For our joint Twitter, that's K _and Kai.
And for Instagram, it's K_and_Kai.
Yep. And if you don't know how to spell either of our names, that's 100% on you. It's everywhere. It's everywhere at this point. Everywhere. Get your shit together. Alright, yeah.
So with that being said, Khaira is here.
Kaylyn was here.
And thanks for listening.
Bye!